My name is Michael, I'm 45, and that Sunday afternoon I should have been just eating turkey and laughing at my brother-in-law's bad jokes. Instead, I was calculating the right time to press the button on my smartwatch. It was a simple family lunch, long table in the backyard, paper flags, Jennifer's mother saying that life is too short for fights. I agreed out of politeness, but I knew that before dessert, they were going to try to bend me again. Those who know me think that I give in easily, that I avoid conflict. Truth, I don't like to raise my voice. But one thing has changed in me since Jennifer showed up with that document. Power of attorney, she said, as if offering a glass of water. I was supposed to sign, just to make it easier for me to make bills, doctors, that kind of thing. It seemed innocent, but the words were all aimed at taking away my autonomy. And the way she repeated "it's for your good" sounded like a key turning inside. I worked my whole life in building maintenance. I know how to read contracts. I know how to look between the fine lines. When I realized they wanted to hurry, I decided to have time. I didn't have to scream. I only changed my place in history. I stopped being a victim and became an observer. I spent a week in silence, but inside me something screamed. That's when I tested the recording on the watch and realized that the audio quality caught everything, even the whispers in the hallway. On Sunday, Jennifer poured lemonade and pulled me by the elbow to the side of the house. She made the voice of care. He said that I had been forgotten, that it scared the boys, that the power of attorney would be a protection for the family. I listened without interrupting. She insisted that it was only administrative. With each "only," I remembered the conversations on the phone I had overheard by accident. Her friend telling me to solve this soon before he wakes up. I was already awake. We returned to the table. People were talking about soccer. Her father brought a walnut cake. My sister-in-law commented on a church lawyer who could help with the papers. They spoke as if I were invisible. I planted my feet on the wooden floor of the balcony and let the scene run. I didn't have to win by shouting. I just had to push a button. The watch vibrated lightly on my wrist as if asking me, "Is it now?" I thought about the day Jennifer moved my medicines and organized everything into boxes, smiling. I thanked him. Deep down, I liked to believe that someone took care of me. But then she started to keep my mail, saying that the bank had called her, that the accountant preferred to talk to her. My name became small in my own house. When I complained, she cried and apologized. The next day, he brought the printed power of attorney, with space for signature and date. I didn't sign. I kept the paper in a red folder along with old bills and pictures of the boys in the park. Jennifer thought I had forgotten, and that made her comfortable. Too much comfort makes greedy people show the whole plan. She called her mother, talked about selling the pickup while he still hasn't decided anything, asked the broker, who knew a quick buyer for our house. I was 5 steps away in the hallway, and the watch was quiet on my wrist. When the Sunday conversations heated up, the moment came. Jennifer brought the briefcase. He put it on the table. The pen slid towards me like a trolley on a rail. The clock vibrated. I looked at the faces. I saw my nephew laughing at something on his cell phone, my mother-in-law arranging napkins, my brother-in-law pretending he wasn't curious. I put my fingers on the pen and breathed. And then I started talking. I said I understood everyone's concern. He said that we get old and need organization. My tone was low, without accusing. I've learned that when you want an entire room to hear it, you don't turn up the volume. You turn it down. I told him that I had talked to an independent lawyer, that I had read that power of attorney, that I understood every line. They moved in their chairs. Jennifer smiled tightly. So I looked at her and asked her to repeat, please, what she told me on Thursday night in the kitchen. The silence that fell was another type of noise. Jennifer quickly said she didn't remember. I raised my arm as if showing a new watch to the family. I touched the metal crown. The audio started at the medium volume of my cell phone, which I had already connected to a discreet Bluetooth box near the barbecue. Her voice came out clear. Her voice came out clean, crystalline, so clear that even the breaths between one sentence and another could be heard. Michael, you're going to sign this crap even if I have to leave you without access to your own money. I've already talked to my mother, to Lisa, to the pastor. Everyone agrees that you don't have the head to manage anything alone. This signature will be for your good. And if you embarrass me on Sunday, is where I'll ruin your image in the whole family. No one blinked. My mother-in-law froze, holding her fork in the air. The brother-in-law, who kept saying that I was paranoid, withered in his chair as if he had been punched. Jennifer tried to get up, but I raised my hand without screaming. just asking for silence. I let the audio go, firm. She continued, "If you don't sign for good, I'll say you're aggressive, unstable. I call the hospital and no one will doubt me. I've even thought about calling Tom to be a witness. He always supports me in these things." Tom was her cousin. He averted his eyes as if he had discovered that there were ants walking by their own hands. I saw anger in his eyes, but it wasn't against me. It was the embarrassment of having been used as a piece in a dirty plan. The audio ended with my voice saying, "I get it," because that night I had said only that. I didn't argue with her. I just registered it. When the audio stopped, no one said anything for a few seconds. The wind swayed their napkin near the platter of pasta. Jennifer finally opened her mouth, stuttering, saying that it wasn't quite like that it was out of context. I took a deep breath and asked, "In what context would it be acceptable to threaten one's own husband with hospitalization to get a signed paper?" She tried to cry, but no one came to help. Her mother, who always treated me like Asen, ran her hand over her forehead as if she had a fever and said only, "Jennifer, and for God's sake." Her father pushed the chair back slowly, as if he didn't want to make a sound. He didn't look at me because he didn't have the courage. He looked at her and said, "That's low, very low." I had never heard that man raise his voice. That day, he didn't scream. He whispered, and it hurt more that way. I could have used that moment to attack. I could have said that she treated me as incapable, that she stole my decisions. But I didn't. I learned that silent justice has more impact than shouting. I just said, "I'm not going to sign anything today, not even tomorrow. If you want to talk as adults, I'm open. But pressure and manipulation? No." I pulled the chair back and stood up. My hand trembled, but my chest was light. Jennifer tried to follow me, saying she needed to explain. I stood at the porch door and said, "You had a chance to explain before you plan. Now it's too late." I walked to my car unhurriedly. When I closed the door, I felt a different silence. It was not the silence of someone who swallows humiliation. It was the silence of someone who finally took up his own name. I drove without music. The city seemed different. Outside, people walked around with grocery bags. Children played in the yard. Dogs barked. Everything is the same. But inside, something had been rearranged. I realized that for years I accepted crumbs of peace in exchange for not being seen as a problem. I thought that avoiding discussion was maturity. But sometimes, letting them step on you in silence is the same as helping to dig your own grave. I got home, sat on the couch and stared at my hands. They were firm again. So did my mind. I thought about my children. How would they see it? I didn't want them to see me someone who blew up. I wanted them to understand that I defended myself with dignity. I didn't have to curse or hit the table. I just had to say enough with evidence. In the late afternoon, I received a message from Jennifer's mother. She wrote, "I'm sorry. Nothing justifies what she did. I want to talk to you calmly." I just replied, "Thank you." I didn't want guilt-ridden alliances. I wanted respect. Jennifer called me 6 times. I didn't answer, not because I wanted to play a game, but because I had nothing else to listen to. Trust was a broken plate on the floor. Even gluing, you could see the cracks. At night, she sent an audio. Her voice was tired. She said that she had lost her mind, that she was afraid of losing control of life, that she just wanted to organize things. I heard everything, but I didn't answer, at least not on that day, because sometimes the best answer is written in a notary's office and mine would come soon. The next day I went to work as if nothing had happened. I put on my uniform, grabbed my coffee at the drive-thru, and walked into the building at 7 in the morning as I had for years. I like routine. It keeps me whole. They call me Mike the Fixer there. I'm the guy who solves leaks, wiring, stuck elevators. I like it when they ask me for help with humility, because unlike my own home, no one there tried to tell me that I was incapable. They asked, I solved it, and everyone went on with the day. Simple. While I was changing a part on the generator panel, the clock vibrated on my wrist. It was Jennifer's message. "We need to talk in person. Please." I leaned my back against the concrete wall and stared at the illuminated screen. For years, I answered everything quickly so as not to create friction. This time, I left it in silence. She needed to feel that I was no longer available under pressure. At lunchtime, I sat alone in my car with a sandwich and thought about everything. Basically, it wasn't just about the power of attorney. It was about the way that, little by little, I had been demoted within my own life. It started with, Can I keep the passwords on the cards to make it easier? Then, let me decide that you don't understand bureaucracy. One day, I woke up and realized that I was treated as a guest in my own home. And the worst? I had allowed it. When I finished my shift, I went to the equipment store where an acquaintance of mine worked. I asked for guidance on a lawyer to contest documents. He referred me to Ascertain Henry, a lawyer for cases of property abuse between spouses. I called while still in the parking lot. I briefly explained the situation. He only said, "If there was an attempted coercion with recorded evidence, you are protected by the law. Don't sign anything and keep everything." That sentence gave me breath as if I had taken a ton off my back. In the evening, I sat in the kitchen with a blank sheet of paper and started writing everything from the beginning. Not as a diary, as a report. Cold, sequential, date, speech, action. Turning chaos into paper gave me clarity. When I was done, I reread it and thought, if I read this as someone else, I'd say this guy was the victim of calculated manipulation. I was that guy, and I wasn't going to allow it anymore. It was then that someone knocked on my door. I rang the camera bell and saw Jennifer standing, holding something on her chest, the red briefcase. She had never come to my house alone since we fought. I partially opened the door. She stepped in and said, "I've come to give this back. I know I blew it." I let her put the folder on the table, but I didn't invite her to sit down. She began to cry. I was silent. She said she was desperate, that she was afraid of wrong financial decisions, that she wanted to protect the boys, that she just tried to organize things. Nice words to cover up control. Tears do not erase threats, said with coldness. I asked, "Protect whom?" Because it didn't feel like protection when you said you were going to ruin my image if I didn't sign. It has stopped. She tried to come closer and touch my arm. I took a step back. He said, "You can cry, you can apologize, but there is one thing that you cannot rebuild with tears alone: trust." She collapsed in her chair. I took the folder, opened it, and took out the power of attorney. I put it right in the middle of the table and said, "Do you know what's going to happen with this? Nothing. It will remain unsigned. And now I'm the one who will reorganize the accounts." She looked at me as if I were a stranger. Maybe for the first time she saw that I still had a voice. I said I wasn't going to kick her out of the house or make a fuss with the boys. I was just going to draw limits, and that from now on, every decision would be discussed. No pressure, no reuniting with the family against me, and nothing, absolutely nothing, would be signed without my lawyer reading it first. She nodded, cowering. For the first time in years, I felt like I wasn't the one who needed to be approved. I was the one who needed to be respected. When she left, the silence of the house was different. It was not loneliness. It was space. Room to breathe without asking permission. The next morning, I woke up early and made myself coffee, with no one telling me to take vitamins, no one picking up my mug before me. I put the music on the radio and let the sun in through the living room window. It was there that I understood that recovering one's own life does not happen with screaming. It happens with a choice, that of no longer being commanded by fear. I don't know what's going to happen to my marriage. Maybe it will end. Maybe it will be reborn. I have no control over this. What I do know is that if it continues, it will be between two adults. Do not enter a guardian and a child. And if it ends, that ends with dignity. Because I'm never going to sign something that harasses me to make someone's life easier. The following week, things accelerated without fanfare. Henry called me and told me to stay calm. Let me take the reins. Don't talk too much, don't delete anything, just give what you have. I followed the advice. I handed over the folder, the audios, everything, organized in an envelope. He made a formal request to preserve the recording as evidence and opened a process of preventive guardianship. Nothing dramatic, just what was necessary to ensure that nothing was signed without my consent. I felt a curious relief. Having the law on my side gave me strength that I didn't know I needed. In the neighborhood, the rumor spread, not because of my will, because I didn't want to show, but because her family couldn't swallow the humiliation. Jennifer's mother came to my house to apologize with red eyes, saying that she had been manipulated too. The father, who that afternoon in the backyard had whispered that it was low, showed up at the church on Sunday and spoke to some people close to me, asking that no one turn my pain into gossip. Some relatives have moved away out of shame. Others approached carefully. The feeling was that the truth, when put on the table, made simple choices. It lined up who was on its side and made it clear who preferred the plan. The boys, my children, were confused at first. They heard pieces, talked to grandparents, saw their mother's face on their cell phone. I sat down with them, non-judgmental, and explained my version in clear words. That I love their mother, but that I don't accept being pushed out of my own life. They looked at me like children look when someone broke something important, half scared, half relieved to finally understand. This was more important than any process, knowing that if I defended myself, my children would understand that dignity is not negotiable. Jennifer faced the weight of her own words. At work, some comments reached her. People who were previously neutral started to avoid easy conversation. She came to him asking me not to expose anything else. I could have made it all public. I could have posted the audio where everyone would see it and judge. I thought about it for a minute, and I stepped back. I wanted justice, not gratuitous humiliation, so I kept their courting restricted to people who needed to know. Lawyer, immediate family, and in the last case a judge. The difference between exposing and holding accountable was the line I chose to follow. There was a formal conversation with her family. The grandfather spoke calmly, sitting in the living room, and said something that caught me off guard. No one gains anything by destroying the other, neither you nor her. Agreed. The goal was never to destroy, but to recover what belongs to me, my voice, my decisions, the trust of my children. Jennifer finally accepted the idea of couple and individual therapy, not because I impose it, but because she herself made an appointment. I did not demand immediate forgiveness. I demanded a commitment to change. If she wanted to stay, she would have to do it as a real partner. The next few months were of adjustment. I changed passwords, went back to taking care of the accounts carefully, scheduled meetings with the accountant and the bank to leave everything documented. Henry followed every step. Sometimes I felt angry. Others, sadness for realizing how long I let small invasions become territory. But I also felt relief. A new peace dwelt in simple things. I could open my mailbox without thinking about who had read my letters. I chose the color of the new car I bought for the boys on my own. I spent a whole afternoon playing basketball with my son without looking at the clock. That counted more than any long conversation. In a sense, life went on with its routines. Sunday lunches still took place, but with fewer penance and more direct questions. Some families preferred not to show up. Others came uncomfortable, seeking normality. Jennifer and I had tough conversations. There were days when I missed what we were. There were days when I realized that maybe there was no turning back. Still, each dialogue was guided by a new rule: transparency. No secret decisions, no veiled manipulation. If it were to be rebuilt, it would be with the cards on the table. In the end, I understood that the real victory was not seeing my wife humiliated by her own recorded voice. The victory was to regain my place, to go back to being the man I recognize in the mirror every morning, to make decisions again with your head held high. If the relationship survives, let it be with respect. If not, let each one continue with dignity. I didn't want the sound of that audio to be the last chapter of our lives. I wanted it to be the beginning of a life where no one would try to erase the other in the name of protection. I know that stories like mine generate sides. There are those who say that I should have forgiven in silence. There are those who say that I should have exposed everything mercilessly. I chose another path, the limit. A limit that protects the family and does not destroy helpless people. A limit that does not accept emotional blackmail. A limit that makes it clear that love is not control.